Going. Oh man, it is super bright. I got a flashlight on my forehead. Nevertheless, welcome to Making the Case for Your Lawyer Dreams. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Of course, Making the Case is an IG Live series that we do every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. We've been blessed to be able to have an amazing lineup of guests for the past 8 months, and we're going to keep the momentum going. Wherever you are in your journey, I want you guys to know that you can be a lawyer, and I hope the stories and people that we have on as guests remind you of that fact. Nevertheless, let us know where it is that you're viewing our session from. Of course, I'm holding it down in St. Louis, Missouri. It's not the place where I want to be. It's the place where God has me. So where are you viewing our session from? Make sure you fill up our chat box. Utilizes the space not just to consume the information, but also to get answers to your questions no matter where you are in your journey. That means you could be pre-law, law student, recent grad. Utilize this as a wonderful opportunity to get a lot of your questions answered. So we got Cali in the house. We got Florida in the house. Utah, New Orleans, yeah. The Butte is in the house. We got Texas. What's going on, T-Cat girl? We got Sophie from Florida. As our room continues to fill up, I'm so excited to have you guys here. I know that oftentimes on this journey it's feel a lot of ups and downs. I know we just got people that just got the LSAT scores back. I want you guys to know that right now there's somebody in law school with the same score that you had. So the dream is not over. That just means you got to work harder, hustle a little bit more when it comes to being strategic with your letters of recommendations, and possibly going ahead and expanding your options when it comes to law schools. So we got NYC in the house. We got Makin, Ryan Keith Thompson, of course, holding it down in the boot in Baton Rouge. You guys, man, we have an amazing guest on today, and I'm going to go ahead and get him on live. Really wanted to get an opportunity for you guys to engage with him, talk with him, get some questions. You probably seen him on CNN. You probably seen him on other networks. And so I'm really excited to be able to have him here to share his journey, share his story about how he became an attorney, so you guys could also get the tea and learn how to do the same. So let's go ahead and get my man Ryan on. Is it going to pop up? What's going on, King? How we doing, brother?
I'm doing good, brother. How about yourself?
Man, I'm blessed, man. I am blessed. I'm First things first, man. I want to thank you for taking the time to come on our show to share your story and also to inspire a lot of people out there. I tell people oftentimes on this journey, fam, it's a full of ups and downs. And a lot of times, fam, there's a whole lot more downs before you ever see an up. And so getting a chance to be able to have you guys share your story, I think is something that's kind of amazing. So I'll give you the floor so you can do your formal introduction, and then we're just going to go ahead and dive in and drop some tea and share some stories. I think my man is loading, so we'll wait for him to come back. But nevertheless, man, you guys do not want to miss out on this amazing story, and also figure out. Oftentimes, when it comes to law school, you guys, we assume that it's one direct path. But what I hope that you guys have been able to see from so many guests who shared their stories is that oftentimes there is a lot of pivots along the way. There are a lot of opportunities where you literally may have started one path and gone another way, but still got back on the path to becoming a lawyer. So we're gonna let my man Ryan's loading connection issue get fixed. But nevertheless, I want you to fill this chat box up with questions as we wait for him to come back on. Okay, fam? And so we got him requesting again. Life is gonna life, and we're gonna make it anyway. So let's make sure. Hopefully, we got him on right now. Are we back?
We're good to go? There we go.
I said life don't life, but we're going to make it anyway.
No, man, listen. I'm not the most technologically sound. But again, I listen, I hand wrote the bar. So that tells you where I'm at, man. That tells you where I'm at.
But nevertheless, my brother, I want to give you the floor first to kind of just let them know who you are and what you're doing, and then we'll just jump into some questions because, man, you're doing a lot of phenomenal things.
Thank you so much. First off, thank you for having me on the platform. When you reached out to me, I jumped at the opportunity. I didn't know who you were. You reached out, so kudos to you to reaching out to individuals that you think may be doing the work or that you think that have a platform or may have some valuable things to say. So again, appreciate you because I wish that there was a platform like the things that you're doing here. That way I didn't have to go to certain forums. I could actually log online from the home. So man, again, kudos to you. Again, I'm attorney Ryan Keith Thompson. I'm with the Thompson Justice Institute. We do indigent defense. We do civil rights work, what some of you would call civil rights work at the federal level, 1983 actions. We do private injury. But to wrap that all up, the majority of the work that we do is social justice oriented. Myself and attorney Jessica Hawkins, who takes on some of these cases with me, as well as a host of other individuals who partner with me in taking on these certain social justice cases. I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama. I moved to Inglewood, California when I was 13 with my mother and my second father. I don't say stepfather, I say second father, because if you are a black man in America, a black man will have many fathers over his lifetime. So I don't say stepfather, this is my second father. So I moved to Inglewood, California. If you've seen the movie The Wood, that is me. I moved here from the South. I moved right into Inglewood and got right to work. From there, I attended Inglewood High School until I was a junior, and then I transferred to what's called Compton Dominguez High School in Compton, California. Some of you will know the notable alumni will be Tayshaun Prince. It will be my man's, who many of you know, Tyson Chandler, no doubt, man. Tyson's a great dude, and a host of other individuals that I met there. From there, I then transferred and did a year at East LA Junior College in East LA, California. From there, I then received an athletic scholarship to Southern Utah University in Cedar City, Utah. Then came back from Cedar City, Utah. Came back. I joined, I enrolled in what's called Rio Hondo Police Academy. So I have a post certificate. Did that for a little bit of time. Figured out that wasn't my steez. And then went into sales at Enterprise Rent a Car for about 3 or 4 years, made it up the ranks to branch manager. And then at some point, I decided I was going to pivot and go back and get my master's of public health from Charles R. Jr. University of Medicine and Science with an emphasis in social justice. At that point, I decided that I was going to law school. So because I went to a PWI, I wanted the HBCU experience with my family. And so there's not too many schools, there's not many at all that have an evening program. I know David and Clark, I believe, has an evening program. I think Thurgood may have an evening program.
Wazay.
Right? Yeah, there you go. But definitely Southern University Law Center has an evening program. And we'll get into all that about individuals who are looking to continue their education, but does not have the luxury of not working. So yeah, that's the gist of what I do. I'm now an attorney. I hit 5 years. I'm looking at my my bar right here. I hit 5 years, October 14th of 2019. Kind of hit the ground running. I started out working at the public defender's office as an intern, worked my way up as a student investigator, Rule 20 attorney, hit the ground running, started doing that work. And then at the same time, I started the Thompson Justice Institute because I wanted to make sure that I could do things on my own and start building my brand and taking on cases that were not criminal in nature. So yeah, that's what I got, brother. You know, that's what we at, man. And some of you may know me, like you said, from like the Brave Cave and stuff like that.
I want you to give that rundown is because there's somebody out there right now who's thinking, well, it's too late for me to become a lawyer, or I'm in this field, or I'm in this particular career. There's no way for me to pivot. And that's one of the things I thought was so kind of amazing about your story, just from its initial starting point. It was just like, life is going to life. You're going to have different experiences. It's going to take you in different spaces. But the thing about it, you guys, is it does not matter. The dream of becoming a lawyer is never, ever law schools are still there.
No doubt.
And that passion is something that I think is kind of amazing for you. It's just like, only thing that happened with it, it just kind of evolved. It's you finding out ways to be to effectively utilize that passion towards helping people. And I think you may say, Anthony, I'm wrong, but I wonder, like, how much was an influence was getting your MPH? How much did that play a role in you literally making a decision to become a lawyer?
That's actually a great question because it's like a story within a story. And so what happened is that, like, in California, there's something called the community university. What's the brother's name? Stevie Wonder owns a radio station in Los Angeles called KJLH. Every morning around 5 a.m., Dominique Dupreme at the time, who is the daughter of Amir Baraka, and who is the sister of Ras Baraka, who is the mayor, I believe, of Newark, New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. But every morning they get up and they bring scholars on, and we talk about the things going on in the community. And so what happened is that they were given the talk on Ebonics. And so to the Afiba Center, which is kind of diagonally across from what you guys would know as the Marathon store. I know it's shut down now. So when, people talking about like where Nip got this consciousness from, like that whole corridor, man, you can't help but soak it all in. But anyway, I went to community university and I met an individual there by the name of CP. He invited me to the Ebonics conference at Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science. And it was there that I met Dr. Ernie Smith, who is the foremost leading authority on Ebonics. I met Dr. Lillian Mobley, and these are all individuals who were organizing in the Watts Willowbrook area. And so they invited me to what they called Monday meetings, where they were inviting individuals from the county, from the state, elected officials, and they would come talk to the community and be vetted. From there, he said, "Hey, what are you doing with yourself?" And I was like, "Well, I'm just working." He was like, "Well, you have a PhD mind." And I was like, "What does that mean?" He's like, "Don't worry about it." So at that point, he was like, "Well, I got a school for you." And I was like, "Where?" He's like, "Charles Drew." I had never heard of it. And so at that point, I was like, "Well, why do I want to get a master's of public health?" And what he said he was like, "Man, if we have a sick nation, then we don't have a nation at all." And so because Charles R. Drew was born out of the rebellion, what some will call the Watts Riot or the Watts Rebellion, you look at the Kerner Commission and things like that, you will see that the university itself, which now has a medical school, a standalone medical school, has an MPH program that is world-class, epidemiology, biostatistics, things like that. Hold on, make sure I fix this. There we go. And things like that. And so once I got into that, I got into like environmental justice. And so the next question became is how do I continue my career, right? And so what the elder said is that we've all done the work in psychology, linguistics. We need someone to bring these issues, this science, into court. And that's how I ended up getting a Juris Doctorate and not a PhD, not an educational, or EDD. That's how I ended up with the JD.
Wow. That's amazing. And it's amazing how sometimes people come into our life for us to be able to show us something that we didn't realize was inside. And I think that's amazing. There's so many people out there who are in the midst of that process, but oftentimes find themselves filled with self-doubt. Now, on this journey, I tell people, I said the biggest challenge will never be a case, never be the bar, never be law school. It's really about you being able to learn about yourself. And so what's one of the biggest things that you've learned about yourself thus far on this journey?
Listen, I tell my people all the time that I've gained a lot of patience being an attorney. That being said, later in life, like say maybe late 20s, early 30s, I grew a passion for reading. But as you know, reading for law school and digesting the law is a completely different type of reading. So what occurred was that during law school, I learned how to focus and I learned more about my body, right? Coming from California, which is a very public health conscious state, like, you want to continue to work out. You want to continue to make sure that you're focusing on your mind, spirit, and body. But coming down to the deep South, like where the food options are different, the mindset is different. You're in the Bible Belt. And so during law school, I really learned about myself in terms of what makes me tick, what type of environment I need to study, how to really digest information fast. So law law school taught me patience, but it also taught me about myself overall and how to really what we would call study, because studying for the law is something completely different, man. And I had to learn that.
Yeah, and I think like overall, like when you think about this whole lawyer journey, really, I feel like a lot of people are struggling with the LSAT because that's the first time they study. I don't know if you remember that from way back in the
I do.
and then for those who are fortunate enough to get into law school, a lot of times they enter law school not really knowing how to study.
No doubt.
I tell people it's like I tell people law school is literally like sink or swim, and you literally have to be able to be humble enough to realize I need to ask for help,
man,
and strong enough to be able to push past the comfort zone. And so, what would you say is one of the biggest pivots that you made on your journey to becoming a lawyer? Because a lot of folks, I'll be like, because one of the reasons why we did this show is because I said I want people to be able to see the people who are doing great things, be able to see themselves. Because a lot of people are like, oh man, Ryan had it easy, man. What are you talking about, man? He had no struggle at all. He don't understand. I'm like, man, we all been there.
No doubt, no doubt. So two things you touched on like briefly is that you were like, hey, about the LSAT. So I went into the LSAT with like a different mindset. Again, I heard you talking about this earlier, and I've like checked out some of your other views, and I think people should be aware of it, particularly Black folks and or poor people, people of color, oppressed people, right? Is that I was fortunate in that I was involved with what was called ABPSI, which is Association of Black Psychologists. So they were doing a lot of work around standardized testing. Yeah, so Joseph White was a mentor of mine. God rest his soul. Robert Johnson. We call him Robert. We call him Bob Johnson. So Robert, who was also a psychometrist, did a lot of work around psychometry and things like this. So I went into the LSAT with a different mindset about like standardized tests. So I knew I was going to an HBCU, and this is not trying to cast any doubt about HBCUs or any aspersions or make any comments about HBCUs or that, or what I'm about to say. I knew that HBCUs were looking at the holistic approach. So I didn't put much value into the LSAT score. I took Blueprint, I think it was. I applied for a scholarship. I got it. I took the LSAT. I got a 145, 142. Again, I don't even remember.
Right.
But I knew the score that I got would get me into the HBCUs with strong letters of recommendation, right? Which is what I had. So I don't want people to understand, like I said, I knew what it is that I was doing. I knew where I was going, and I knew what I wanted to do. Now, that being said about the struggles, I was on academic probation my first semester, right? Mm-hmm. Like, got bodied the first semester, and being a former NCAA athlete, you look inward and you say, okay, I can point the finger. I can say the teachers, knew who I was, or that someone got a leg up, or I can really get down to the gritty. One thing that I did, and this is going to come up when I study for the bar about how I felt the bar the first time, is that in our law school is something called POOP, property of other people, meaning that you take someone else's outlines and you then try to use them to get through the course and make it easy. I tried to do that the first semester, and it just didn't work, right? So the self-reflection that I had to have and the struggle that I had is that I was trying to do what other people were doing, right? I came in thinking that I was older and I knew everything and whatnot, right? And that I was an avid reader and all that stuff. But it humbled me when I got those grades. And I'll never forget why it was when I got those grades. I was in Birmingham, Alabama, visiting my family, and everyone starts texting saying, grades are up, grades are up, grades are up. And I hit refresh, and I almost swerved off the road, bro. Like, I was like, oh my God, what is this, right? And so I had to have some self-reflection over the holidays, right? And say to myself, I'm going to read the book, right? I had a professor by the name of Professor Oliver Minster, and she was like, you can't cheat this process. Right. So literally from that point on, I literally read every book from front to back in law school to make sure that I was prepared, because I knew that if I understood the concepts in the book, if I understood the cases, I understood the chapters, and I understood where the author was trying to take me, that there wouldn't be anything or any hypo that they put in front of me that I could not answer.
Wow. And that's the thing that's beautiful. It's just like we all have those moments where we have to realize, okay, it's just put up or shut up time.
No doubt.
And it's like where you literally, it's you versus you. And the amazing thing is you begin to realize it's like all I have to do is add discipline. And sometimes that's one of the hardest things to be able to try to add to your bag, is because you can make a reason, like we could make a reasonable argument why somebody else's fault, but ownership really kind of stops with us.
Listen.
And so one of the things I wonder for you, and I oftentimes ask everybody this question, it's going to give a lot of brown sugar 90s vibe, but when did you fall in love with law?
So I tell you is that prior to law school, again, working with this community group, there was a lot of different projects they gave me. And so I became very interested in what at that time, which was policy, right? Using the policy and using the policy in my writing and advocacy for parents that came through the community group that was asking for help, advocating for my own children. So at that point, I then begin to love the adversarial process, right? And law students will learn this, like this is an adversarial process. This is a contact sport. So if you do not like adversity, if you don't like the adversarial process, you do not like contact, then, you know, I suggest you go do something else. But this is what it is, right? I'm being real. And so what happened is, and I tell you what made me fall in love with the law was that when I saw the level, let me say this, now State Senator Cleo Fields, he's now running to be a senator for the newly created district here in Louisiana. He came and visited. Like I knew I wanted to advocate for our people, but the specific question is, when did you fall in love with the law? Is when I figured out the power that I had as an attorney.
Yes.
Right. And so what he said was, he said, you guys don't realize the power that you have. He said, as an attorney, you have the power to stop people's lives. I was like, well, he was like, what do you mean? He said, when you draft a petition, a complaint, and you serve someone with that, it literally stops their life, right? The next thing is that when you're talking depositions, when you're talking hearings, when you're talking someone is sworn in under oath, and they now have to answer your questions, that is a lot of power, right? That's a very lot of power. And so it was at that point is that I realized that if I was a student of history, because a lot of times we're talking procedural backgrounds, we're talking legislative intent, it's really history. And so when I realized that I could blend history with my advocacy and the power that my license gave me, love at first sight, brother.
And I think it's amazing because literally one of the questions that I have my students answer when they apply to law schools, I ask them, I said, when did you fall in love with law? Because this thing, you know, ain't easy.
It's not.
And it really tests your level of commitment and you being able to see the long game and not really being able to focus and disciplining yourself to not focus on the challenges that may be. And so that's something that's amazing. I know one of the things I always love is it's like, bro, you're doing a lot of amazing things down in Baton Rouge. And I want you to go ahead and tell them about a lot of the things that you're doing down there, because there may be an athlete out there or there may be someone questioning, maybe they're ready to make that career like you, that needs to hear some of the things that you're doing. So they can be like, oh, I could do that too.
So you have to figure out, and I'm talking to my athletes right now because this is personal to me. When you figure out you aren't going to the NFL, the question then becomes is, what do you do with the discipline that you've learned? What do you do with that aggression that you had on the field, right? With that love for competition, the question becomes is, what do you do with it? For me, my love of poor Black, oppressed and or oppressed people needed to blend with that discipline,
Right.
with that love of competition, with that aggression that I can no longer carry out on another human being physically. You know what I mean? And so the question then became is how do I blend that? In all fairness, my uncle is actually an attorney. He's a criminal defense attorney in Washington D.C., practicing in that hybrid style system they have up there, which is between federal and state. But he's like, hey man, I think you would love being a criminal defense attorney. And so once I decided that I was going to go back and go to law school, the question then became is where was I going to take my talents?
Right.
You know, quoting LeBron, I'm going to take my talents here. And so he was like, hey, I think you would love working for the public defender's office. So you have 98% of our clients at the East Baton Rouge Public Defender's Office are going to be African American. They're obviously poor and they need access to quality, highly trained, aggressive attorneys. So I started working there for two reasons. One, they gave me access to the population that I want to serve. And two, it gave me the fastest experience, meaning courtroom experience, motions, talking to people, trial experience, bench trials, jury trials, 6-person juries, 12-person juries. It was all there, right? And so that is how I pivoted from taking like the athlete, this newfound passion, well, not newfound passion, but refined passion of what I gained from the public health sector. I mean, from working in public health, and getting a degree in public health, and how can I go and get on the field, right? So and get that contact. So that's how I pivoted. So once I got that, got into the public defender's office, I hit the ground running really fast. So I was working with a lot of attorneys. If they had a trial going on, I would say, hey, what kind of research do you need? Now, I'm not going to tell you that I put school to the back burner, but it was a balancing thing. It was like, hey, I go to Southern University Law Center. Do I want to go practice corporate law? No. The question became is, how do I become the best attorney I can the fastest, right? And so for me, it was while having that social contract with my people, but also honing the skill I did at the public defender's office. Now, because they only practice criminal defense law, I knew, and I got that grassroots training in me and whatnot. I got with an individual that your viewers probably know and you probably know. I got with a man by the name of Gary Chambers here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Me and Gary hit it off. We started doing work around Alton Sterling while I was in law school. Yeah, so that's how I met him. We stayed in contact. We kept working with each other, doing community work. And then at some point, he went to a school board meeting and had an intimate conversation with a white woman by the name of Connie. So he had the conversation with her. At the same time, he decided that he wanted to run for Congress. And I wrote probably 90% of his platform. So again, taking my skills that I learned from law school, because I took legislative drafting, applying the law, and I started taking the public health bill and starts drafting his platform. So that's how I got involved. I started interacting with the community. The community started to know me. And then when the time was right, I started taking on civil cases that piqued my interest, that I felt needed to be taken on. So the first thing I was involved in was challenging the school board around bullying. Really, really big issue for me. Once I got involved in that, I then took on another case whereby a elderly black man by the name of Danny Buckley was shot in the parking lot by a white supremacist for talking to white women. So you can look that up. We're still litigating that. He was found guilty of manslaughter and given 18 months in prison by the judge. So we still have the civil side of that going. You look at you like, let me write this down. The civil side of that going on. And then the more recent thing that really made national attention is a case that everyone knows is called the Brave Cave. Right. And so I got into that because literally there was a mother that contacted me that was looking for representation for her black son. He was in prison. She didn't have much money. And so I went to visit him. Once I visited him, he came in with bruises. He said, the police beat me. And then instantly I would in action start doing the research and got involved in there. Now, interesting enough, the reason that we were able to take this case and really bring it to a national level is because of my relationship with Gary Chambers. He has over 400,000 followers because of my relationship with Sean King that I built through Gary. But the other side of that is because, and the great Kwame Ture, the late great Kwame Ture talks about this, about having an internationalist perspective. Every morning I watch Democracy Now! Every morning I watch Democracy Now! So I'm aware of what's going on in the world. And what I saw on the body on camera and what my clients were telling me, the Braving clients, this sounded like a black site. Had I not had the public health background, had I not had this international perspective, I would not know what I was looking at. So to wrap it up, the more recent cases that the Baton Rouge Police Department was running a black site, a unmarked warehouse where they were interrogating people, where they were doing unconstitutional strip searches, all in the name of gathering intelligence about our community.
Searches. Right. And it's amazing. I wonder, like, for you, and I think, like, how important you highlight to our listeners about how important networking is. Building those relationships and really getting in the trenches has opened up so many different doors for you in the space.
It's very important. And listen, relationships can be built across race, gender, class. It crosses boundaries, and you have to have that relationship built. And again, one of the individuals that we're partnering with on this case is a professor out of the University of Virginia, Thomas Frampton, right? He's a white liberal, right, who teaches at the University of Virginia. He has an Ivy League background. Reached out to him, was like, hey, let's talk about this case. So you have to be willing to talk to people, but you have to be willing to what they call reach across the aisle. Some of my colleagues who I talk to who've been, more seasoned, I know they're Republicans. They're staunch Republicans, right? They are supporters of Donald Trump. But what we can all agree on is that in some cases, they believe that the government is overreaching, right? They have a passion for criminal law, and they love young talented lawyers. So again, those relationships that you build are key. Let me say this about building those relationships. You do not have to compromise yourself, and you can have disagreements respectfully and professionally, and don't be afraid of them.
And I think that's kind of amazing is, even though, of course, that we're in right now, everybody's on their own side. There is it's a wonderful way where we're able to find sometimes around to say that, simple as kids say, right and wrong. And find that common, we could be able to point what is wrong and agree on something that's priceless. And I think one of the things that's so profound, and I want people to understand, like, oftentimes there's a lot of people out there that are operating, they're afraid of rejection, afraid that step out of my comfort zone. If I go ask to volunteer, if I go ask that, I'm currently out, or someone's going to go off on me. So I want you to tell me, like, how the process building that network, because I want people to realize this is something that anyone can do. They have a desire to and build reasonable relationship that can help later.
Listen, hold on one minute. Let me. Stop that from happening. We're good.
Yeah,
you got me. All right, cool. No, so listen, man. Like, those are very key points, and so I want to make sure that your listeners understand that the best job I've ever had, literally before this, was enterprise rent a car. It was a sales job, right? It requires you to hit those sales. You have to talk to people from different backgrounds, and you have to make that sell fast. Someone comes in to rent a car, you have to figure out how do you upsell them, how do you sell them what's called insurance protection, and then you're working with other college graduates who are trying to figure it out. Like, they don't really have a path in life. So best job I've ever had, that job, those skills that I learned in enterprise rent a car transferred over to the current profession. You know what I mean? And so what it did for me is that I was not afraid to have conversations with people, to build, like, so some people call it an elevator pitch, but we call it bar hopping. You know what I mean? So you walk into a bar, you sit next to a guy, you having a beer with him, or you sit next to a young lady, hey, can I buy you a drink? and you're just having conversations with them, figuring out, what makes them tick. How do you find that commonality? It is very key in this profession. A lot of individuals that I met with the law school, because they were good at school, because they're just really, good at following the rules and book smart, as they say. Mm-hmm. But those who are successful that I know are very outgoing people. They're very disciplined people. They're very competitive people, and they build relationships and they're able to have conversations. Because believe you this, if you're not comfortable having tough conversations with the person across the aisle from you or the judge, right, then you're going into the wrong profession, and you're going to you probably don't want to be a courtroom lawyer.
Yeah. I mean, well, someone once told me, they said scared lawyers don't make. I was like, okay. But
listen, yeah.
But one of the things I would love to be. So, what are some of the goals that you had that you've reached thus far on your journey, and what are some of the new goals that you're shooting for now?
That's a great question. And so for me, when I came into the public defender's office, my goal and the experience that I was getting was to say, if I'm a 1-year attorney, I want to have the experience of a 2-year attorney. If I was a 2-year attorney, I want to have the experience of a 4-year attorney. 3, 6, 4, 8, 5, 10. And so in setting that experience, I was able to do criminal law on one end, but then started, like, literally, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Like, I work 6-7 days a week. When you reached out to me last night, you were like, "Hey, King, where's that video?" I told you what. Where was I coming from?
I'm in the jail. I hit you when I get out.
And look, you didn't get that video till 1 o'clock in the morning, right? But that's what this requires, is that I'm working 6-7 days a week. And I'm not saying that, that's the most healthy thing to do. I'm not telling you that. I'm saying I have to have balance. Like this weekend, I'm taking off, right? Completely off, right? But that was the goal for me, was to have the experience 2 times the time I had been practicing, right? And so if I knew I wanted to just not be a criminal defense attorney, I wanted to have the civil experience, I started taking on small civil cases on the side. And as the brand grew, as the opportunity presented itself, or as the issue that I was passionate about presented itself, I took on civil cases. And so those were the short-term goals, was to start, one, in terms of 1-year attorney, 2-year experience, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, right? The other goal was that start building the brand. Like Jay-Z said it best, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. And so law school teaches you, what's in theory, but they don't teach you really how to be a business, about brand building, right? I think I may have 7,000 followers, but I can tell you that the majority of the business that's referred to me is by word of mouth. Again, learned that at Enterprise, that if you do a great job for people and you're honest with people and you do the best you can, they're going to refer you individuals, right? I've been fortunate enough, as you mentioned, that I've been able to appear on certain platforms and get some media access, right? And so, but that didn't happen without having to build a brand first, right? And picking and choosing the cases that I was going to take on. The long-term goals for me at the Thompson Justice Institute is that at some point I want to transition into teaching, right? Get into teaching, because I don't want to spend talking about my balance, right? Being a family man and having other goals and aspirations. I don't want to spend the rest of my life on the front lines. We have to train the next generation of lawyers to be able to take this on, because I think too oftentimes in our community, I'm talking the Black community, is that we stay in positions and don't bring the others along. Let me give you an example, and this is no shade on him, but there's no reason that the late great, what's the representative name? John Lewis. There's no reason, in my view, that he died in his seat. I think the baton should have been passed. For my individuals who are into RBG, I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, in my personal opinion, there's no reason she should have died in that seat, because now we have Amy Coney Barrett, right? And so if you're talking about transitioning into your next phase, that's what I'm looking forward to, is transition to this teaching role, possibly at a university, but I think I'll find more Black males like myself at the junior college level.
Absolutely. Now, one of the oftentimes ask you guys to do is when we close out, I oftentimes ask you guys to speak out or say an encouraging word. Because as we always know, like, for example, you were at one point in time at Southern. I got dismissed from school and was able to other people, these challenges are all widespread. And sometimes we very seldom have to not only provide encouraging words, because a lot of us are on this journey, unfortunately, on our own, trying to figure it out. Created this platform so we can see people who look like us share this journey and also motivate us to move forward. So, what encouraging words you got somebody out there who may be going through some struggles?
Man, you can do it. You can do it. Life, God never promised us that this journey would be easy. The Torah never promised us it would be easy. The Quran never promised us it would be easy. Whatever it is that show faith, if you don't have a faith, no one ever told you that this is going to be easy. But it's beautiful, right? I wouldn't trade this for the world. The late, great Nipsey also talk about, like, the process hurts, but it's the end result that is the blessing, right? And that is really true. This is a very unique profession. It will humble you. It will make you make life choices. It will teach you a lot of different things, and it can be beautiful if you do it. That's the profession. But those are trying to get in the profession, listen, you're not your LSAT score. You're not your GPA. You are not your LSAT score. You are not your GPA. We need you in the profession. There are individuals, there are systems out there that don't want you in the profession. Keep pushing. Figure out how to get it done. Some of you, I know I have a friend who's in California right now that is not going to an ABA law school. California allows you to take what's called baby bars. He's working, he has a family, and didn't have the necessary scores or the money to go to a traditional law school, UCLA and things of that nature. So he chose to go to the People's Law College, and he's taken that more non-traditional route. That's a lot more difficult, but he's going to make it through. But here's what I'll say, and I'll wrap it up by saying this. I promise you that if you stick to it, and that if you persevere, and that if you take all the things that you've learned in your life from your community, from your loved ones, from your family, I promise you, you'll be a bad mofo in the courtroom, in the legal profession, because there's nothing like sitting at that table by yourself and looking over at someone from a top tier law school, or someone who came from a wealthy family, and the law is the law, right? And you are mopping the floor with them, and you know that they are not built for what it is that you're bringing in that courtroom that day.
Wow.
Okay. The last thing is this: is that the struggle that you're going through now is not going to change. You're going to get in the profession. You're going to know that you're right, and the judge is still going to rule against you. You're going to take a writ. The appeal court is not going to agree with you. The Supreme Court is not going to agree with you. That's what this is. This is what we signed up for. So make sure you understand before you make this commitment exactly what it is that you're getting into. But I welcome you. You can reach out to me at Ryan Keith Thompson. Again, I'm on Instagram. If you reach out to me, I'll share whatever wisdom I can. And, again, I know I said last, but lastly, listen, Southern University Law Center is a great place to learn a law degree. We need help down here in Louisiana. We need folks to come down here to contribute to the struggle. It has a daytime program, a daytime part-time program, and we have the evening program for non-traditional students. So if you're looking for a home, Southern University Law Center wants you.
I mean, I just said in the comments, you over here dropping bars, man. And that's the piggyback. Southern is an amazing law school. The faculty, the administration, they are one of one. When you call them, they are like family. And bro, bugging them about helping one of my students, they're like family. But at the end of the day, you guys, remember what he said, man. Like, you can do this. Literally, I mean, lose if you don't quit.
No
and
doubt.
The thing that's amazing about it is you have him. He said, "Here, you questions. Reach out. We're here designed to help you." So, bro, I want to thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for continuing to be an advocate in the back. We're going to continue to pray for you.
Please.
For you. great. Just share your stuff. Man, you're doing amazing. I want to thank you for sharing your stuff.
Man, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that listening tonight. And may justice be swift.
All right, peace and blessings, you guys, and I'll see you guys again next Wednesday.